So in the last video, we were able to finish building out our dashboard. So now in this video, we're going to begin to build out our sidebar. So inside components, layout, and then sidebar.jsx, let's go ahead and begin building this out. So first of all, we're going to mark this file as use client, and then we're going to import a bunch of things. So import cn from libutils, which is a helper function that is created when you're using shardcn. And then import the button component from the UI button, import the scroll area, which we don't have, so we need to install it. So Ctrl J, open up your terminal. Inside your third terminal for the installs, simply click the up key and then change this to say you want to install the scroll dash area, and then enter. And then this is coming from // UI / scroll dash area. That's its name, so it's scroll dash area. And then we want to import a bunch of icons here. So we want to import the paw print, we want to import the home icon, search, bell, message, circle, circle. We want to import the user, the settings, we want to import the X icon, the plus circle, and then the file text icon as well from Lucid React. And then we want to import the link from next link, the next / link, and then we want to import use path name from next navigation. And then once we have that, then we need to go ahead and set up our navigation. So const links is equal to, open this up, and we're going to have an array of objects. So the name for this is going to be feed. The href is going to be going into the / dashboard, and then the icon that we are showing is the home icon. And then let's copy this down a bunch more times. So copy, and then let's paste it 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. I think those should be enough. The second one is the discover page. So discover, going into the / dashboard / discover. This is going to be showing the search icon. Next is the applications. This is going into / dashboard / applications. The icon is the file text icon. Next, we have the messages, going into / dashboard / messages. And this is just a preference of mine. This is how I set up the routing for this application, but you don't have to do this if you don't want to. So the messages here is going to be showing the message circle. Okay, and then the next one is the notifications. This is going into dashboard notifications. Okay, it is rendering the bell icon. Next, we have the profile, going into the dashboard. Where did I backspace it? / profile. This is showing the user icon. Next, we have the add pet, going into / dashboard / add dash pet. This is now showing the plus circle icon. And then finally, we have the settings page, going into / dashboard / settings, and then this is showing the settings icon like so. And then we can begin to build out our component. So export default function sidebar. Remember that it takes in some props here called is open and on close. And then I'm going to say const path name is equal to use path name. And then let's build out our return. So we're going to return a React fragment. And because we're returning a React fragment, I think it would be prudent of us if we import React from React, just so that we don't have any issues. Now we're going to build it in the following way. So we're going to have the mobile overlay first of all. So mobile overlay, which is basically like a kind of like a dark background when the sidebar is open, which when you click on, it should trigger the on close function right here so that it closes the sidebar. So you want to check if is open is true, and only when it is true, that's when you want to return a div here with a class name of bg-opacity -25, and then fixed, and then insert -0, give it as index of 40, bg-black And then on large screens, we want to say hidden. And then when you click on this, so when you click on this div, so on click, you want to call the on close function like so, and it is a self-closing div. And then you can go below this, and then now we can actually build out the sidebar. So the sidebar is going to be as follows. It's going to be a div, not dvi, but a div. This div is going to have some dynamic class names. So we're going to call the cn utility and then open this up, and then we're going to pass in the fixed insert-y-0 left-0 z index of 50 and then width-64 and then transform bg-white shadow-large and then transition-transform and then duration-300 is in out. And then on large screens, it's going to be a static sidebar so that it scrolls with us. And then on large screens, we're going to say insert-0, and then on large screens, translate on the x of 0, like so. And then right where this ends, we want to have a comma, and we want to check for is open, and only when is open is true, that's when you want to have translate on the x of 0, meaning it's going to bring the sidebar into view. Otherwise, we want to say minus translate, I can't type, translate on the x of full, meaning it's going to hide it. Now, inside this div, we're going to have another div with a class name of flex, height-16, items-center, justify-between, and then border-bottom, and then border-gray, 200, and then padding of the x on 6. Inside this div, we're going to have another div with a class name of flex, then items-center, then space on the x of 2. And then actually let's save that so that it formats it a bit better. I think that is much better. And then now inside this div, we're going to have the pawprint icon. The pawprint icon is going to have a class name equals to size-8. Can we see the sidebar already? No, we cannot. And then text-orange-500, close it out. And then we're going to have a span here. The span is going to be a class name, but it's going to have a class name of text-xl, then font-bold, and then the text is going to say pawprint, like so. Now below this span and then below this first div, we're going to have a button with a variant of ghost. And then the size for this button is going to say small. And then when you click on this button, on click, we're going to be calling the on close function. And then the class name is going to say on large screens hidden. So we don't want that button to be visible on large screens. And it's going to be showing the X icon with the class name of size-4, like so. We can save that. And then let's make this full screen. So you can see that this is what we are building. Fantastic. And then we can make this full screen as well. Now below the button and then below the div, we're going to have the scroll area component. Now scroll area is going to have a class name of flex-1, close it out. And then we're going to have a div with a class name of padding on the x of 3, and then padding on the y of 4. Inside this div, we're going to have the nav element with a class name of space on the y 2. And then inside this, we're going to go ahead and say navigation. And then inside of this, we're going to go ahead and say links, which we created above, dot map. And then for every item that we get back, we're going to go ahead and return a link component with a key of item.name. And then the href for this is going to be going into item.href. Then close it out. Inside this link, we're going to have the button. The variant for this button is going to be checking for the item.href if it is equal to the path name that we got from use path name. If that is true, then we want to show the default button. Otherwise, we want to show the ghost variant of that button. And then the class names for this button, we're going to say width-full, justify-start. And then inside this button, and you want, it's going to have an on click as well. So on click, we're going to be calling the on close function. And then inside this button, we want to render the item.icon. So take note that it is inside angle brackets so that it gets the component. And then the class name for this is going to say margin right of 3 and then size -4. And then below this, we're going to render out the item name. So render out the actual link, and you can save that. Let's see what I have on the screen. And there we go. So this is going to be our navigation, as you can see right here. And I don't know what happened, but Tailwind, ever since Tailwind updated to version 4, when you hover over a button, it no longer shows the cursor of pointer. So what I'm going to do is jump inside globals, and what I've done there is Control P and then just type in the name of the file that I want, so that inside here I can say that for the button component, we're going to say @apply cursor -pointer, so that now when you hover over these items, then it should change into a cursor of pointer. Sometime today, please. There we go. So that is looking much better. Now next, let's go ahead and build out our header component. Now our header component is going to be dependent on two other components from TsbSankara. So we're going to install the drop down -menu, and then we're also going to install the avatar component. And then as they install, let's jump into the header.jsx. So we're going to mark this file as use client. We're going to import the button from ./ui button. We're going to import the avatar, which has not yet finished installing. So I think let me wait for it. And there we go. And you know what? I missed one more component that we need. So we need the badge component as well. So let's import the avatar from, let's get the correct one, from ./ui avatar. We need the avatar fallback, and the avatar image. And then we also need to import the drop-down menu. So drop-down menu, let me get the correct one, from ./ui drop-down menu. And then drop-down menu content, and then drop-down menu item. And then we need the drop-down menu label. We also need the drop-down menu separator. And then finally we need the drop-down menu trigger. So, and then we need to import the badge from ./ui badge. We need to import the menu, and then the bell, and then the settings, the user, then the log out, which is coming from Lucid React. We need to import the user, the use user from ClarkNext.js, and then we also need to import the sign out button from ClarkNext.js. We need to import use query, and then we need to import the API from the convex, and then finally we need to import the link component from next link. And then we're going to go ahead and say export default function header, and remember that the header takes in the on menu click. And then we're going to go ahead and destructure the user coming from use user, and then get the current user, so const current user. And let me go ahead and just grab this. Where is it? Is the current user? It's not here. Let's just type it out. So const current user is equal to use query, and then pass in api.users.get user by Clark ID. Check for user .id. If that is true, then pass in the Clark ID as user.id. Otherwise, we're going to skip the query. And then const, oops, is that correct? Did I do this correctly? This should say user.id. Okay. And then const, we're going to get another thing from convex here. So const unread count, so we don't have this yet, is equal to use query, and then pass in api.notifications.get unread count. And then this is going to check for the current user _id. If that is true, then pass in the user ID as current user _id. And then otherwise we want to skip the query, and then we can begin to build out our return. So our return, we're going to return a header here, the header element with a class name of fixed, and then top dash 0, right dash 0, left dash 0, z index of 30, border dash bottom, and then border dash gray dash 200, and then bg dash white, and then on large screens left dash 64. Inside this, we're going to return a div with a class name of flex, height dash 16, items dash center, justify dash between, then padding on the x of 4, and then on small screens padding on the x of 6, and then inside this we're going to have the button component. The button is going to have a variant of ghost, a size small, and then on click is going to be calling the on menu click function, and then the class name for this one is going to say on large screens hidden. Once you close that, we're going to be showing the menu icon with the class name of size dash 5, and then close it out. Below the button, we're going to return a self-closing div with the class name of flex dash 1, just like that. And then below this, we're going to write out another div with the class name of flex, and then items dash center, and then space on the x of 4. Inside this, we're going to have our notifications. So the notifications is basically going to be showing the bell icon, but it's going to be a link which is linking into /dashboard /notifications. And then inside this, we're going to have a button with a variant of ghost, and then size of small, and then class name is going to say relative, because inside this we're going to have the bell icon with a class name of size dash 5, and then below the bell icon we're going to be having the unread count, and we want to check if the unread count is greater than 0. If that is true, then we want to go ahead and render out the badge component from shardcn with a variant here of destructive, and then the class name for this is going to say absolute, so absolute, and then minus top dash 2, and then minus right dash 2, and then flex, and then size dash 5, items dash center, justify dash center, and then padding all round of 0, and then text dash extra small, and then the text is going to be showing the unread count, meaning the number of unread notifications. Now we can't test this out just yet because we don't have the function that gets the unread count, so therefore let's just build out the UI first of all. So below the link, we want to go ahead and build out the user menu. So we're going to have the drop down menu. Inside the drop down menu, we're going to have the drop down menu trigger, and the drop down menu trigger is going to have a prop called as child, so that its properties are going to pass down into its child element, which in this case is the button with a variant of ghost, and then the class name here is going to say relative, and then size dash 8, and then rounded dash 4, and then inside this button we're going to be showing the avatar component. The avatar is going to have a class name size dash 8. Inside the avatar we're going to have the avatar image, and the source for this is going to be coming from user .image URL. If there is no such source, then we simply want to return an empty string, and then the alt attribute is going to say user .full name, otherwise return just an empty string like so, and then it is a self-closing component. Below, did I do this correctly? Is this correct? This should say user. I think that should fix it. No, it doesn't fix it. What's the problem? Let me write it again. So avatar image, the source for this is going to say user .image URL or an empty string, and then the alt attribute is going to say user full name or return user like so. Close it out. Okay, so now it's not a problem. And then we're going to have the avatar fallback, which is going to say user .first name and then get the first character like so. Oops, get the first character, If that does not exist, then simply return U for user. Now let's go ahead below this button and not below the drop down menu trigger. We're going to have drop down menu content. This is going to have a class name of width-56, and then align is going to say end. Close this out, and then we're going to have a drop down menu label. This is going to have a class name of font-normal. Close it out. Inside the drop down menu label, we're going to have a div with a class name of flex, then flex-column, flex-column, space on the y of 1. And then inside this, we're going to have a paragraph with a class name of text-small, leading-none, and then font-medium. And then this is going to say user ? Dot full name, or return the $ curly brackets user ? Dot first name, and then also attach the user ? Dot last name, like so. And then below this paragraph, we're going to have another paragraph with the class name of text-muted foreground, text extra small, and then leading none. And then inside this, we're going to say user ? Dot email addresses, and then get the first email address, ? Dot email address, to get the actual text of the email address. Below the drop down menu label, we're going to have drop down menu separator, and then below this, we're going to have the link, which is linking into /dashboard /profile. Inside this link, we're going to have drop down menu item. Drop down menu item, close this out, returns the user component, or rather the user icon, with a class name of margin on the right of 2, and then size -4. Close it out. And then below this, we're going to have a span that says profile. And then below this drop down menu and below the link, we're going to have another link, which is going into /dashboard /settings, and then drop down menu item. This is going to be showing the settings icon. So settings icon with a class name of margin right of 2, size of 4. Close it out, and then the span is going to say settings. And then below this link, we're going to have drop down menu separator again. And then below this drop down menu separator, we're going to have the sign out button. This is going to say drop down menu item, then open it up. It's going to call the log out icon with a class name of margin right of 2, size of 4. Close it out, and then the span is going to say log out. And I think we should be able to save that. And then let's jump into Convex and create a new file here called notifications.js. And then let's go ahead and create our function to get and read notifications. So let's go ahead and say import query from /generated server, and then import v from convex values. And then I'm going to say export const get and read count is equal to query. Open this up. It's going to take in some arguments here as user ID coming from v.id from the users table, and then the handler function. It's going to be an asynchronous function taking the context, and then the arguments. We're going to say const notifications is equal to await context.db query, and we are querying the notifications table. Then we're going to have a callback here, and you know what, that's wrong. So with index, we want to query with index of by read status, and then now we can pass in our callback. We're going to say query.equals, pass in the user ID, and compare to the arguments.user ID. And then outside of this, once again, check whether it equals the isRead, where the isRead is false, so meaning where the notification has not been read, and then .collect to get all of them as a number. and then we're going to say return notifications.length to get the actual number of unread notifications. So return. Save that and Control J to open up your convex right here, ensure that everything is working, and then now once it reloads, then we should now be able to preview our header. Okay, so it's still throwing me this error, get unread count notifications, get unread count notifications. Let me just make sure that I'm doing the correct thing. So get unread count. Okay, so notifications, get unread count. Okay, so let's just go ahead and hard reload it because I think it's just an issue with caching. And there we go. So we have our sidebar right here. We have our header. So we have the bell icon, which when you click on is going to take us into the notifications page. And then we have our drop down that we were creating right here. So clicking on this takes you to the profile page, this to the settings page, and then this is going to log you out. Fantastic. So I think with that, we need to go ahead and build the next page. And in this case, I'm going to build out the profile page first of all, and then the settings page, and then the add pet page, because I think those are the profile and the settings page are going to be the easy pages. And then add pet, we need to be able to add pets in order to preview these other pages. So let's go ahead and work on the profile page next in the next video.